Population bomb or bust? Well, climate change activists tell us the world is heading for extinction if we fail to act now. In reality, humans may face extinction in a number of countries because their populations are having fewer babies. Marian Tupy, senior fellow at the CATO Institute, joins us to provide more insights. He's author of the book Superabundance, the story of population growth, innovation, and human flourishing on an infinitely bountiful planet. Marian, in the late 1960s, Paul Ehrlich, in his book, The Population Bomb, predicted global famine, other societal turmoil due to overpopulation. Now it looks like underpopulation's a growing problem. Tell us what is happening and why we need to be concerned.
Paul Ehrlich, who is still alive, he is a biologist at Stanford University, was looking at the huge explosion of population around the world in the 1960s after the end of the Second World War. And that was indeed happening. And in 1968, he wrote a book, The Population Bomb, which predicted that hundreds of millions of people would die in the 1970s and the 1980s, regardless of what humanity did in order to come up with solution to this massive increase in population. But in fact, whilst the population of the world has indeed risen, we did not see that happening. In fact, since 1960s, commodities have been becoming less expensive. They've been becoming more affordable. I can just tell you that the price of coffee, for example, dropped by 96%, the price of wheat by 88%, the price of corn by 87%. So over a span of 70 years, while the population of the world was exploding, everything has become cheaper, with partial exception on some years of gold and oil.
And we've seen one-way flights recently full of people departing Russia after President Putin issued his military draft order to mobilize people to fight in Ukraine. But Russia was already losing population. The country may likely see a decline of nearly 1 million people just this year. So tell us what's happening in Russia and why.
Well, Russian population has been declining with a few exceptions since really the 1980s. Part of it had to do with difficult living conditions and alcoholism, which has resulted in shorter lifespans. Their healthcare isn't very good either, so a lot of people die unnecessarily. But since the invasion of Ukraine and since the mobilization call, a lot of people have decided to leave Russia for Georgia and the Baltics and other places because they don't want to die in a war. But you know, that is sort of just a Russia-centered view. Fertility rates have been declining throughout most of the world. In order to maintain population stable, you need 2.1 babies per woman per lifetime. But in most of the developed West, including the United States, fertility rates are much lower. In our own country, it's only 1.7 per native-born woman. Of course, our population is still growing because of immigration. But in other countries which do not have huge immigration inflows, the situation is even more dire. In South Korea, for example, it's only 0.9 babies per woman per lifetime instead of 2.1. Japan, France, Britain, most of Western Europe, Central Europe, all of us have population growth rates below replacement level.
So what's the consequence of that? What's the result? Are we going to see nations disappear?
Well, if the trends continue, now the trends may continue for a variety of reasons. There are good reasons and there are bad reasons. The good reason is that a lot more women decide for themselves how many babies they want to have. Maybe they want to get a job, make a lot of money. Those are the sorts of reasons that we have to accept by living in a free society. But then there are negative reasons for falling fecundity. And one of them is, of course, extreme environmentalism, which is something that we have decided to tackle in this book that we wrote called Superabundance. Basically, parental choices don't happen in a vacuum. Parental choices happen as a result also, in part, of the sort of philosophical zeitgeist, the ideas in the air. And a lot of people, men and women who want to have children, are telling pollsters that they are refusing to have children because they believe that the world is going to end in a few years, because they believe that bringing a child into the world is a crime or an act of selfishness, because they believe that population of the world, humanity, is a cancer on the planet. So what we are trying to say in this book is that the planet is actually in a very good shape, and if past is if past is to teach us anything, it's very likely that children in the future are going to have an even better future than we have the current present.
Okay, Marian Tupy, Senior Fellow at the CATO Institute. Thank you, Marian, for providing those insights. We appreciate it.